We are Geekcentric, and you can be too. Love ya. Get home safe, guys. Peace.
What's up, geeks, and welcome back to the Geekcentric podcast. My name is Justin, and today we continue with part 2 of our retrospective look at the work of Christopher Nolan, picking up where we left off with The Dark Knight. But first, if you're joining us for the first time, this is a weekly podcast covering the world of film, television, gaming, toys, collectibles, and all things geekcentric. Joining me, as always, we have my geeky co-hosts, Nate Shelton and Kevin Hudson, so let's get into it. All right, so our next film after Prestige was his follow-up to Batman Begins, which was The Dark Knight. Obviously, everyone knows this film. After Gordon Dent and Batman begin an assault on Gotham's organized crime, the mobs hire the Joker, a psychopathic criminal mastermind who offers to kill Batman and bring the city to its knees. You know, approaching the sequel, Nolan wanted to expand the noir-like style of the film and broadening the canvas and taking the dynamics of the story of the city and larger and you know, kind of increasing the focus of crime and, you know, where we look at crime, both in terms of the police, the justice systems, vigilantes, poor people, and of course rich people and criminals. The idea that this can exist within any of the facets, which I believe is intentional because that's kind of Joker's motive right up to the end in this movie. Guys, I think that this goes on a record of being like probably the defining film of superhero movies, right? Like in terms of, and it's funny because like I would argue that it's not really a superhero movie. It's kind of a crime thriller film with Batman, right?
If anything, I almost feel like it's a supervillain movie, in the sense that like, yes, this is the best Batman movie. This is the best Joker movie ever made. And I know that I'm, you know, that's coming from me where, you know, I put Joker on, you know, some very high lists. The Joaquin Phoenix Joker, I think was fantastic, but it's, you know, they're obviously very different films, outside of the, you know, that main character there. But, it's just, I think it's just seeing the concepts of order and chaos clashing that we hadn't really seen before from, like, again, all of the 90s versions of the Joker leading up to this, right? Where we're actually getting to see this dark and really just unexpected and unassuming character out of the Joker that's just phenomenal. Like, it sticks with you, and you think about it. Like, that's all that people were talking about for years after. I mean, we're still talking about it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that the performance, it makes me sometimes wonder though, if you know, if Heath Ledger hadn't passed, obviously he would still be getting the notoriety of this role, and we would probably have a different Dark Knight Rises. But would it have so much acclaim to it? Like so yeah, Kevin's shaking his head. So because he's passed away, it does amplify the importance. Like, it doesn't discredit the fact, like, okay, it was an okay performance, and, you know, it was his last performance. It was a fantastic performance. It was the most engaging. Like, to your point, Nate, it is a Batman movie, but you were so focused on the Joker. You were waiting for him to come back on screen, and you would see him, and, you know, he was diabolical, he was smart, he was, you know, crazy too, right? At the same time. And like, the way Nolan approached writing and envisioning the Joker is outstanding. It obviously goes to his, you know, you have Heath Ledger, who obviously elevated that performance, but creating such a clear intention that drove the Joker in terms of trying to prove that there's bad in everyone. That when it really comes down to it, everyone has a little bit of bad in them. But yeah, I think just the approach of that and giving him such a focus it was just so well done.
I mean, I think this movie has gotten enough smoke blown up its butt over the last 10 plus years that I'll come in as negative Nancy here.
Nice.
It's a great movie. It's a great comic book movie. I just can't help but feel that it's, a posthumously appreciated performance that elevates it to this level of just invincibility in terms of being able to talk about it realistically. Like, the Joker's plan is stupid, nonsensical, and was impossible to pull off. Like, the things he does throughout it, just, there's no way he could have known what to do and where to be and how to do it the way he does it. But that never gets talked about. That bugs me a little bit. And as much as people appreciate this performance in light of Heath Ledger passing away, I can't help but look at it in a bit more of a saddened sense, in that he literally died for this performance, and I find that the sacrifices he kind of made to his personal life in order to pull this off, I kind of find that tragic more than it is something to be celebrated, in a sense. Again, I don't want to get too dark and too heavy here and really try and poop on something that, it's a brilliant performance, and, to be recognized by the Academy is really quite nice for him and everything like that. But that still doesn't give his daughter a father back. And and I just think that's a bit of a shame to come out of all of this. But I also don't think it's that much better than, say, Batman Begins. I really don't find it to be that much better of a movie. And so when you see the rankings that it has in a lot of ways, I just find it almost hard to believe.
Right.
Just personally.
Yeah, no, and I completely hear that, and obviously definitely always sad for when somebody like that passes away. But I think, you mentioned Joker's story there and Joker's plan to be, nonsensical and doesn't make sense and to be very unbelievable. That's kind of the point, though, right? Like, isn't the Joker, like, the whole point of the Joker is chaos. It's to show that he can pull these things off because he really doesn't know what he's doing, because he's not thinking about it ahead of time.
There's way too much organization going on in all. The guy with the cell phone in his stomach has to be in the right cell, and he's got to be exactly where he needs to be to shoot Gordon, and all of these things. I
think, though, the thing that kind of stood out to me from rewatching it recently was that the Joker actually has people in all of these places that are doing these things. So who's to say the cops that aren't involved with getting man with cell phone in tummy right into the center so that he can, because he knew that he was going to get pulled out once they found out that Harvey and Rachel were missing. Like, everything is kind of, the idea is that Joker and the mob, he's working with the mob, and the mob already has people in places, and obviously that's a big part. The main thing is that there's no one to trust, right? Throughout this whole thing, everyone's out to protect their skin from whomever, right? And Gotham is tainted. And what is crazy is that the Joker is reaping the benefits of that by instilling more fear, right? And making a promise that he's going to kill Batman that I think he knows he's not going to be able to do, because he says, I don't want to kill you, right?
Right. And I think it's that duality between the two characters where they're playing off of each other. Like, obviously we talk about the Joker, we talk about Heath Ledger, but the whole balance and the aspect of both of those characters playing off each other, they need each other, and it's so cool to see that kind of gravitate. Right. But to your point, Justin, like, the aspect of the Joker putting all the dominoes, he's setting up dominoes over here, he's setting up dominoes over here, he's setting up dominoes over here. He doesn't know which ones are going to fall when, but he knows that he's got these things in place so that when he's in the right opportunity, he can strike.
Sure. So, Kev, we got a Metascore there?
Well, I think this one's going to be pretty obvious to everybody. This gets ones across the board. An IMDb score of 9.0, putting it in the lead there. Metacritic score of 84%, the top-rated movie in Nolan's filmography. 94% on Rotten Tomatoes puts it at the top of those critics' scoreboards. And then Flickster, the third and final movie of Nolan's filmography, to get a 94%, putting it at number one again, obviously. So this is the most beloved of Nolan's movies, hands down, I would say.
Right. And it's not even really of the Nolan verse if you were to think about it, which
Sure,
I'll
it's more
explain
Batman.
later. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's
Yeah,
it's
I
not
agree.
Yes. No, yeah, it's certainly not in that, but I just mean in the filmography.
Oh, of course.
his. It's,
No,
yeah.
and it's kind of like it's the hit, right? Like it is the hit of the movies. And a lot of it is anchored by, variables like, outstanding acting performance from Heath Ledger, and, good storytelling and a thrilling sort of story as well. But yeah,
But it goes to say when like it's not just that audiences love it, critics loved it too.
Right.
Amongst films that are almost more filmmaker-y, right, that he has in his repertoire here.
Right.
This one is not just by the fans, but by the critics too. Absolutely a smash. So
right. Awesome.
and probably still the defining movie of his career, I'd say.
Sure, absolutely.
Whether
And
he'd like it to be going forward, right?
Or not, right.
He's always going to be linked to this
Right.
movie
Well,
first and foremost, I think.
Exactly, because if you didn't know who Christopher Nolan was at that point, you did after watching that movie. 100%.
Yeah, that's when he popped up.
That's when he popped, because then he popped off, and Warner, he went through this tradition, obviously, of doing a Batman movie and then doing another movie that was more his style or more in his universe, if you will. And in 2010, we had Inception. After the Dark Knight success, Warner Brothers signed Nolan to direct Inception. Nolan also wrote and co-produced the film and described it as a contemporary sci-fi action film set within the architecture of the mind. What a great synopsis. One great quote that I found about this, and I think this kind of in a very, very well summarizes the movie. Inception is proof that people are not stupid, that cinema is not trash, and that it is possible for blockbusters and art to be the same thing.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really
It was
cool.
from
I
a
love
film
that.
critic named Mike Kay from Variety, if I'm not mistaken. But anyways,
Very
that
cool.
quote really stood out to me because I think for me, just to kind of kick this conversation off, this movie has a lot of really complex ideas to it. And the way it conveys the information throughout the film is actually very, very good for just a general audience that would go and see it. Like now it's almost like Nolan knew, okay, Dark Knight has made me super, super popular. A lot of people are going to go check out my next film. I need to make it as, straightforward and easy for people to kind of comprehend, but in the style and world that I like to play in, right? Which is obviously this dream state and, mind-bending sort of experience. And I think he distilled the information, these complex ideas that he was really playing around with in very generalized information using specific characters.
Yeah, I mean, what's the word again that I'm blanking on when characters say things to tell the audience?
Exposition.
Exposition, right? Like, there's definitely a lot of expository, expository.
That's entirely
dialogue.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is that character, while Ellen Page's character
Is the audience.
Is we are being introduced to this world, even though we get
And I don't
introduced
think you
to
could
it.
do it any other way.
Sure,
This
I
was
agree.
one where like it's not pandering. That you
No.
need to hold our hands and
Yes.
guide us step. I still don't bloody get it.
You have to,
like
but
in a
it's-
lot of ways. So
And I love that it's fast paced. It is doing that expository dialogue, but it's doing it in a way where it's like I felt like I was in class for certain points of it, where I'm like, I have to take notes. Like I'm like, okay, okay, yes, JGL. But honestly, like not since The Matrix has a concept built such like a fantastic world and told a well thought out story, for me at least. Like it honestly is such a fantastic idea. And I think one of the coolest things, again, to that quote that you said, like it doesn't give us a dumbed down story. It gives us a very smart story. But it, like a lot of Nolan's films, it gives us a movie that, rewatching it over and over and over again, you're going to get more with every single viewing.
We'll see. Here's the thing. They do hold your hand to make sure that information is getting to you so you understand. Like, it is a heist film. there's aspects of it, and when they're powwowing and coming up with their ideas and standing in the dream world as it's being built and stuff like that, all of that is exposition for you to understand what they're about to do and what they're about to go through. Because the first act of seeing Leo in this sort of world where it's like East Asia, like Japan, and there's water, and then everything starts falling, and it's interesting that you have this very thrilling moment, and then suddenly you're just like, well, what just happened? And then it starts guiding you through what just went on. But yeah, I think in some ways they, like to Kevin mentioned it, like they do hold your hand, right? Which is fine. I just think that if they're gonna hold your hand, I like that the way Nolan did it versus maybe other films that don't trust the audience too much and think, okay, they're not gonna get it, so we need to. Yeah,
that's the thing. It's not because it's in a condescending way. It's because I have come up with something so bat crap crazy that the only way you're going to have fun and follow along is if I explain it as we go. So here we go, and it's fun, and it's and there's just so many scenes you can talk about that are just iconic and revolutionary, and
very much like The Matrix, right? Like, again, a lot of the beginning of that movie, and even I would say that full first movie of that trilogy was, here's how The Matrix works.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right? To get to those points. So, like, I don't think that's a negative at all.
No, for sure. And I think that's actually a really good example if you think about it, because at The Matrix, it kind of starts, you're kind of like, what's going on, right? And then as then suddenly Morpheus comes in, and then the explanations start happening, and then you got, before you even get that, you're getting guys in black suits, putting bugs inside of the tummy of Neo, right? Like, you've already experienced a dream world in Inception within the first like 10 or 15 minutes. You've already back to the real world, and what's interesting is like this future, like this weird future that he tends to play in, where it's like you can't really put a date to it. He never does. I don't think. I can't recall, but like Inception doesn't have, like, it's obviously some sort of future, you know what I mean, where this is possible, where it is possible to dive into people's minds and steal things from their brains
to the point where there's competing groups of people that are actually doing this. Or there's even we even get that fantastic scene where they go into the chemist's basement, and we get to see all those old folks that are just they're there to wake up. And I love seeing how it's a world that they're building. It's not just this one group of people that have figured this thing out. It's like, this is a common thing, right?
Yeah,
and to the
it's
point where
something that is in society. Yeah.
Yeah, because that was one of the big things the gripes that I had with it at first, where I was brand new to it when I was watching the first time, but Ariadne's character kind of took me out of it the first time, because I'm like, why is she so accepting of this? Like, yes, she freaks out at the beginning, especially when she starts learning about, the subconscious, and she gets stabbed and what have you. But like, it obviously is something that the whole world is aware of because of how willing she is to just jump into it, right?
Well, she's studying that, right? Like she's studying something to do with that, because that's obviously how he's gotten into this work, is because he studied it, and his father-in-law, which is Michael Caine, is a professor of it. So it's like there are classes being taught of whatever it is, right? Like this dream state ability. So crazy. It was a crazy concept. Kev, what do you?
It really was. I even just think the cast is really exceptional. You have a fantastic performance by Leonardo. Ellen Page does a great job of being, that conduit for the audience. Mm-hmm. You've mentioned Michael Caine. Cillian Murphy's great in it. Obviously, Marion Cotillard is so tragic. Yep. But my favorite performance, and it put this actor on the map for me, it was Tom Hardy. I think he's so fun in this movie.
Yeah, he is great.
And it's almost a shame he's never really played a character quite like this. Mm-hmm. Like, he's always dark and brooding and serious, and in this one he's the complete opposite.
He's cocky. He's cocky.
Yeah, but he's, oh, darling, and he's just like, he's fun.
Oh, man.
And I think the closest you get is maybe a little bit in Mad Max and a little bit in Venom, but he never quite goes to the sort of side that he goes to. He's pulling up the big gun and everything.
Can we get Tom Hardy in a Bond? Can he just be Bond?
I would take that in a heartbeat.
They're trying to cast the next time, but I don't know. I don't know. Like, I think Tom Hardy is probably, I would say is one of the more humorous aspects of the film. Like I
That's
love
the
when
thing,
when he looks at him and he's like, "You got to dream a little bit bigger, darling," and then pulls up like a rocket launcher
Boom, the
or like a
giant gun.
grenade. I thought that, like, that made me laugh out loud.
Right.
And yeah, he had a swagger to him. But I gotta say, like, I remember seeing it on opening day, and after going through this entire movie and learning all this information of this world and this dream state, and then of course Leonardo comes in, spins his totem and stares at it, and then gets distracted by his children, but yet as the camera goes to follow him, it focuses on, and you just have everyone in the audience go, oh, like they suddenly clued in, like they realized that it was all for this one moment of what really grounded him to want to achieve the goal that he wanted, right? To be with his kids. And
But was it a dream?
Oh, the way they edit it though, it's like you see the
never
wobble.
know.
No, but you see that little wobble, like it could fall, and it like
Yep.
zips, and then it just cuts. And the music swell. It was so well done.
We also never saw Michael Caine's character in any dream sequences scenes. And then there's a lot of theories out there about the wedding ring and the fact that might have been Cobb's original totem, because he uses Mal's totem throughout the film. So in the last scene, he's not wearing the wedding ring. So like, again, like that kind of points to the idea that he ultimately wasn't dreaming in that moment. But again, it's one of the fantastic things that Nolan does in these movies, and I think at least in his later movies here, where it gives us the ability to chew on these movies for years after, and also for us to come up with our own endings. Right. And I think that's something that he actually loves to do.
Yeah, no, of course.
Yeah,
I think that's 100%. Like he likes the idea of ambiguity and the audience really kind of adding their own
audience
layer.
decide. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Because rather than giving a clear-cut conclusion, which so many films are known to do, and traditional filmmaking is known, your story has to end. He likes to engage into sort of like a thought process with his audience. And I think that this movie exemplifies that, because it gave you so much information to get you to that point. It's now like, well, was he dreaming or was he not? Right? Like he basically entices you to go back and rewatch the movie to see if you could figure it out. Right? Like it's
I
so
think
good.
you said it well, right? He wants to leave it in the hands of the audience. Mm-hmm. And based on the scores, I think that really did resonate with audiences. IMDb fans have it at an 8.8, so that's the second highest of the Nolan films.
Wow.
And Flickster audiences put it at a 91%, which is the third highest rated. So again, it's right up there in terms of not Batman and not Memento. It's right up there near the top. Critics not as hot on it. 74% from Metacritic. Still a common theme. Fantastic score, right in the middle of the pack. And then 87% on Rotten Tomatoes. Great score, right at 4, right in the middle of the pack.
That Metacritic score, I think that really speaks to kind of what we were talking about. And I think maybe some of those complaints could have been with that expository dialogue, right? Where I know that a lot of, again, Kevin calls them snobs, but a lot of the high-end film critics, I could see them picking that sort of thing apart.
Well, I think,
you know,
I think that was actually one of, like, sometimes like a little bit of like one of the things I did like and didn't like is how they did convey information, and at times how they might have overtly did it, and it was very clear that this person had to be in this scene because there needed to be an explanation that needed to be rounded out, right? There was a lot of that, so I can see how it would have that sort of negative impact on those kind of people.
But in that case, I would rather have a director who needs to sort of put those elements in
to create
take a chance on something that is just so out there that we need that help, rather than not taking any risks and making it simpler or a little dumbed down in other ways.
And I think effectively though, by doing that, Kevin, he's broadened his audience. He hasn't made it smaller. He's made it so that, like, I could watch this movie with my mom and she would understand it. Do you know what I mean? Like, she would comprehend.
See, mine probably wouldn't, but
but you know what I mean?
A couple viewings. She's a smart lady.
I just think though that, like, the information is so distilled in a way that it does increase the amount of people that could go and see this film and understand it.
just before we get to the next film, I just want to give you a really quick fun fact, because we haven't yet talked about one of the most important things in the Nolanverse, which is the music. And of course, we mentioned Julian earlier, and of course, we're going to be talking a lot about Hans Zimmer. But with Hans Zimmer's score, obviously phenomenal. But I think what most people remember, at least from the trailer for this film, was the big boom sound, right? And the fun fact, that's probably, you guys already know this, non je ne regrette rien, which translates to no, I do not regret anything, which is really cool because that ties into the film, is actually that boom sound, and that's the song that they play as the kick, right, to get them back.
Didn't we talked about this in the score one, right? In the movie score episode.
Yes.
Yeah,
it's so definitely go back and check out that episode. But if you missed it, that's the same song slowed down exponentially. I just think that's freaking cool. I don't know. I really dig it.
Now, but in terms of regrets, the fact that every movie trailer for the next 5 years used
Hans
that
Zimmer's
sound.
Hans Zimmer's biggest regret. He said that. He said, I used it as a mechanism within the score, and it just got overexerted in a trailer, and then it just became this thing that was constantly seen, large booms and so on. So yeah, I don't think he's overly proud of that. That got
I love it.
Directly associated with him. All right, next movie, The Dark Knight Rises, 2012. In 2012, Nolan directed the third and final Batman film, The Dark Knight Rises, with Christian Bale reprising the title role. Although Nolan was initially hesitant about returning to the series, he agreed to come back after developing a story with his brother and David S. Goyer, and they felt they could end the series on a high note. Obviously, we know that in this film, Batman meets Bane as the new villain, who was essentially put in because, I think everyone might know this, but there was a lot of rumors that Leonardo DiCaprio was going to be joining as Edward Nygma or the Riddler, and they were really trying hard for that. But Nolan was hesitant to do that because he thought that he was kind of replacing the Joker with someone that would probably work in the same sort of realm as like the Joker.
Right.
So he wanted someone that was a little bit more combative and a little bit more physical. So he casted, obviously, Tom Hardy as Bane. And I don't know, like I feel like this movie, I don't know. It's not my favorite, that's for sure. It's probably pretty low for me. I felt like it was typically spectacular. It was definitely ambitious, but I disliked like the overloaded story and the excessive sort of grimness of an atomic bomb, and I don't know. It just kind of like it did feel like. It almost felt like Nolan had so much money that he had to like up the story by like putting more elements into it that were at play. And I don't know, it just felt kind of sloppy.
I personally love this movie. I think it's an awesome way to end the trilogy. I think rounding off your story with your main villain being the daughter of the villain from the first one is a cool touch. And they pulled off another twist in the same family to sort of really pay homage to that. I think Tom Hardy was awesome as Bane. Nobody acts better with a mask covering half his face. That like Tom Hardy should go out and be the spokesman for COVID and wearing a mask, because he would charm some people into wearing it, I think. Yeah. Like, there's a movie, we're going to talk about another movie where all you can see are his eyes and the amount he can emote out of just his eyes. And I think his posturing and body language, he was menacing. If anybody was going to just beat the ever-loving crap out of Batman and break his back, it was that guy.
Yeah.
No. That I think really stood out for me was, again, I'm on my Inception Tom Hardy kick. It's still fresh, right? But I thought he was wicked. I think the story drags a little bit. While Batman's in the pit, the story drags a bit.
Yeah.
Rhyme not intended. But I think with all its shortcomings, it's still they were really left in a tough spot when their main villain who stole the show in number 2 couldn't come back.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I think they scrambled pretty nicely to put a fitting end to the story there.
He's gone on record to say, I think he actually said it to Goyer, and Goyer had reiterated it in an interview, that of course there would have been, if Heath Ledger was alive, he would have been the closing of this trilogy, and sort of that end. I think, to your point, Kevin, they did really struggle with probably the story aspect. I do love Bane, though. He's probably one of my most favorite villains other than the Joker, but like Bane is fantastic because he is smart. And that's the thing. They nailed Bane really well. Like, he's smart, he's tactical, but he's also very aggressive. So like, they didn't make him like how Batman and Robin made him, where he was a dumb Bane, like sort of monster, right? Like, they gave him a brain and a plan, and he was executing that plan. And yeah, you're right. The tie with Talia al Ghul was actually a really great sort of connectivity to the first film, to really bring in that sort of family and love and so on. But yeah, I think that narratively it was like sloppy, because I've never seen this, but there was a lot of behind the scene photos of Christopher Nolan rewriting the script on set as they were filming, right? Like, like jerry rigging things in the process. And I feel like that's just because he wasn't really 100% sold on it. He just needed to do it because I think he wanted to do his next film.
Dark Knight Rises, again, I think my biggest disappointment with Dark Knight Rises is just that we didn't get more Nolan Batman movies. Like, we get to that end with JGL kind of, he's going to be Robin. And then it's sort of just, the whole thing just sort of went away. And I just didn't feel like it ended enough for me. Again, I guess it speaks to it in the sense that like,
still
I wanted more Nolan Batman, but yes, I guess you're right. Like it does. Maybe we see more. I don't know.
I mean, I almost appreciate that it did sort of close off at least that story.
Right.
Sure,
right.
They could have gone on to tell more stories with, Robin or whatnot, but to close off Batman's story the way they did, I thought he had a nice ending. Hopefully him and Alfred actually did see each other at that cafe and it wasn't some Inception, did they, didn't they, sort of, quick shout out to Anne Hathaway, who I thought was absolutely fantastic. Really surprised me in a lot of ways at how much she pulled off that character.
So good. She elevated, man. She elevated Catwoman to like that sassy. Like, I love that change in her character when you first see her and she's like, "Oh, Mr. Wayne." And then he says like, "Those pearls are my mother's pearls." And
then you
she
almost
just
see it like snap into her. Yeah, it was so cool.
So good.
She was fun. Now, I mean, like, looking back, this movie does get pooped on a lot, it seems, eh? Like, a lot of people seem to give it a lot of crap. I was looking at some Nolan ranking lists, and this was often at number 10, as his worst film.
Yeah.
But the scores certainly don't dictate that. An 8.4 on IMDb puts it right in the middle. Mm-hmm. And, like, critically, it got a 78% on Meta. Critic, which is 4 points higher than Inception. It got an 87% on Rotten Tomatoes, tying it with Inception. And then it got a 90% on Flickster audiences, which is just 1% under what Inception got. So it's kind of strange that it gets all of this negative feedback. And I even remember it at the time, people not liking it so much. But these scores certainly don't seem to reflect that. So it's a very perplexing movie, I think, in terms of what its legacy was and will continue to be, in terms of, I mean, when you make a trilogy with 3 excellent movies, one has to be the worst, one has to, and the third one always has the toughest job of closing things out in a satisfactory way for everybody. So
right.
Yeah, definitely an interesting challenge, an out of this world challenge, if you will.
Yes, well, you know what? The next movie is out of this world. Interstellar in 2014. Nolan next directed, wrote, and produced the science fiction film Interstellar. The first drafts of the script were written by Jonathan Nolan, and it was originally to be directed by Steven Spielberg. Based on the scientific theories and theoretical physicist Kip Thorne, the film follows a group of astronauts who travel through a wormhole in search of a new home for humanity. I recently rewatched this film, and I gotta say, it surprised me the second time how much I actually really enjoyed it, and it all does actually make sense.
Yep.
You know, like the science, obviously I don't understand the science, but what they're trying to achieve with what they're researching actually makes sense. And actually that is one things that people go like crazy about with this film. Like even like physicists have said like Interstellar is such a great representation of the science of what they are trying to achieve.
That's cool.
Nate, you saw this though in theater, and like, what was it, IMAX or?
Yeah, IMAX Cinesphere, actually. Dude, like going downtown, seeing this in the Cinesphere, which looks like it came from the movie itself, like it looks like physically like that. This movie it's a ride, and it's so cool how the story can be so big and so small all at the same time. Yep. The writing and the dialogue and the way that these characters talk is so good, but I really got to give it out to the writing to be able to make to make me feel sentimental for a sentient block that looks like it was from 2001: A Space Odyssey. Like to get to get upset about some of those characters passing away and they don't even have faces. Like that was so cool, and I can't believe I slept on it for as long as I did. Mm-hmm. Did you guys watch it in theaters, like in release, like when it first came out?
I saw it.
Absolutely. I haven't missed a Nolan film since Begins.
Oh, there you go.
Like opening night.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah, I've seen every film.
And IMAX every time it's in there. Mm-hmm. Starting probably with The Dark Knight. That was the first one where it was like, there is IMAX involved in this. Let's go. You know?
I think IMAX was the big advertised one. I don't know if they did it for Batman Begins, but probably you're right.
I don't think so. I think it was Dark Knight where it was like there is 20 minutes of IMAX in this
footage.
movie.
Yeah, the whole opening scene.
Thing.
And that would only become something that he would continue to use in larger quantities as his filmography grew. But yeah, Kev, what did you think of Interstellar?
I got to say, this is probably my least favorite of his sort of cinematic, big blockbuster movies. I just think it. I didn't love the relationship between the father and daughter, and the 700 times you have to hear him yell Murph. I think
McConaughey was great, man. He was good.
I think like a cosmic bookshelf was a really cheesy way to sort of end it, and like I wasn't a huge fan of how it all wrapped up. Right. I think the idea of searching for an exoplanet that human beings could find that are habitable, and having like that whole sort of mystery of, are they going to find a place? What's it going to be? And then the whole Matt Damon popping up, and then Dr. Man, so symbolic. Man is evil, like that was all great. And I was riveted, and like the way he filmed this interpretation of space and time travel, or the effects of gravity and space travel, it was just absolutely incredible. By far the best, biggest, most incredible work he's done in his career. But I think the ending drops it like points and points in terms of how I left the theater and how I remember it, it didn't resonate with me at all.
So I don't obviously want to linger too hard on this movie, but this to me is his 2001 Space Odyssey. He is a huge fan of that film. And in many ways, I think this was his homage to that film in various ways. The ending, it almost is like the kaleidoscope. Only the idea is
you're
that
spot on.
The idea is, though, that I think he actually tried to draw more relevance to what that world was and connecting it back to the story. Whereas obviously in 2001: A Space Odyssey, we were kind of left with like impressions of like, what does this mean? It didn't connect back to the story, but like the space moments and how it goes from quiet to like gentle rattles in the ship, like it felt so authentic. And when you see the explosion of the Endurance, and you don't hear it, right? It's just all visual, right? Like something so simple, right? And he definitely plays with the visuals. Obviously, how you swoop in, like as you're swooping into the black hole, there's no sound, but you get pulled in, and then you're into stars. It's insane, like unbelievably well done. I turned off all the lights. I rewatched it. I turned off all the lights and just watched it on the screen, and it was so immersive in that thing. And I think, in many ways, this was his love letter to a 2001 Space Odyssey, and he did it better, obviously, in comparison. So
yeah, I agree.
Go ahead.
How'd it rate with the Metacritic there, Kev?
Well, fans liked it more than critics. Let's see, IMDb fans gave it an 8.6, putting it at a solid number 3, their third favorite of his movies. Metacritics have it at a 74%, which puts it at 5th, so right in the middle of the pack. Rotten Tomatoes poo-pooed all over this bad boy, a 72%. Obviously still certified fresh, but that's 8th. That's 8th on the list. That's last. That is his lowest rated Rotten Tomato movie on the list.
Wow.
And then Flickster audiences have it at an 85%. So again, right in the middle of that pack as well. So I guess the cosmic bookshelf BS didn't resonate with everybody.
Dude, I guess people just hate love, I think that's what it is.
No, not it. I want to go to space and find planets, not discover the bond between a father and daughter.
Then you're watching the wrong movie. Don't watch Interstellar. The space was second for me, but...
Yeah. All right, final film, Dunkirk. 2017. Nolan returned to directing after a bit of a stint with producing. In 2017, he comes back with Dunkirk, based on his original screenplay and co-produced with his wife, Emma Thompson. The story is set amid World War II and the evacuation of Allied soldiers from the beaches of Dunkirk, France in 1940, describing the film as a survival tale with a triptych structure. Nolan wanted to make a sensory, almost experimental movie with minimal dialogue. He said he waited to make Dunkirk until he had earned the trust of major studios to let him make it as a British film, but with an American budget. Before filming, Nolan sought advice from Steven Spielberg, and Spielberg had later said to Variety, "Knowing and respecting Christopher Nolan as one of the world's most imaginative filmmakers, my advice to him was to leave his imagination, as I did on Saving Private Ryan, in second position to the research and making sure that the film is done authentically," which was entirely his approach. I recently rewatched this.
This is like Sarah's jam, so if it's on TV, it's on my TV. So I see
Really?
this. I see this at least in parts, like a couple times a year since it's come out.
Really? She likes it?
Do not mind. She loves this movie.
Wow.
And I do not mind it being on at all. I probably saw it about a year ago, most recently, in its entirety.
I watched it. Same thing. Cinesphere in Toronto, just last year, and dude, like it. The way that the movie portrays war is, the movie is very much like war itself. Like, it's so loud and it's so terrifying, and like your heart is just exploding out of your chest. I don't know. I just think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's probably one of the most interesting war films I've ever seen, being that it revolves around 3 different stories that are happening in and around each other, and that sort of back and forth. Again, finding a way to implement a fragmented narrative, a multi-structure story, in a war film, which doesn't seem conventional. A war film usually very much like a Saving Private Ryan. It starts here and it goes here kind of thing.
But I love that because for the audience to kind of feel that confusion. Mm-hmm. Again, like these soldiers, they're confused throughout the entire time. They're like, who are we fighting? Who's going to be attacking us next? Right. So it puts you in that mindset. And I think that, to a certain degree, like we talk about his narrative structures and how that's a very Nolan thing, but it fits so well within this war story, which, to your point, Justin, we haven't never really gotten before. For
sure. I think it's also to just really talk about like the efforts and how time is really, it's a factor in obviously seeing where people are at specific points, but then how that time starts to overlap at specific points and people's lives start to intersect.
There's just so much I love about this movie from that, like, soft and gentle performance from Mark Rylance, to the just incredibly tough and ballsy performance of Tom Hardy. There's just so many fun little things, and there's a lot of unknown actors that give these amazing performances that you feel so much for these characters. You feel so much fear, so much tension for them. But I think even just beyond the characters, I think my favorite part of it was that moment where you realize that these are all intersecting stories and just how they're intersecting. And for him to bring a story or to play a story, 3 separate stories, one being a week, one being a day, one being an hour, and they all sort of converge at this one singular moment was just so well done. For all the times he's played with time and manipulated narrative, this, I think, was my favorite reveal.
Right.
You know, it was my most satisfying, and it just came together in such a way. Plus, my boy Harry Styles, he's great in this.
Yeah, he does. I think he was actually pretty. He surprised me.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Job.
Like I wasn't expecting him
He did a good
to...
little job. Yeah, I was proud of my guy.
Yeah, he surprised me for a war film. That's for sure. Right.
Yeah.
Like and I think all the unknown actors that were featured, even the young boy George that was on the boat that smoked his head.
Poor George.
But he had such ambition
George.
and like just the idea of like the ambitions that young people might have had back then and wanting to do things and how war can take that away, and you kind of see that mirrored in the fact where these young kids are on the shore trying to get home, and this young posh kid who also has that desire, but he's not in war, right? And he wants to do something.
Yeah, well, like Nate, you say I don't have any feelings, eh? Like it hit me so hard earlier on in the film. George says all he wants to do is have his name in the paper to make his parents proud, and then he dies on the boat, and his buddy goes and gets the story off, and so then you see that he gets his name in the paper, and he gets as a hero, as somebody who made a sacrifice for the greater good. Like that is like tearjerker. That's as close as you're going to get to a tearjerker for me.
For sure. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I just think there's so much done well in this movie that it's right up there for me.
So what does the Metascore say?
Well, it is number 1 on Metacritic at a fist-pumping 94%.
Wow.
That might be one of the highest ranked movies in Metacritic history.
That's crazy.
It's got a 7.9 with IMDb fans, so they weren't as keen. It's at a 7 out of 9, so right near the bottom for people. Just slightly better than something, or I might have mixed my math up a little there, but it's just slightly better than, say, The Following. And then Rotten Tomatoes has it at a 92%, so 3rd overall. And then Flickster audiences, again, not as keen as the critics. Flickster audiences put it at an 81%, so 6th. So again, towards the back end of the filmography from fans' perspectives. So yeah, again, one of those movies. There's so many that are just critics and fans love them, and then there's some where it's polar opposites depending on who you're asking. Somebody reviewing it or somebody paying to see it in a theater. So
right.
That's neat that he has that effect on people, in so many different ways with his movies.
Right. Well, that's been a lengthy conversation in regards to looking at the entire work of Christopher Nolan. Obviously, we're huge fans. And, of course, there's a new movie just around the corner that we're all anticipating to see, and just to see how great it is.
I've already seen it.
Well, you've seen 10 minutes.
Yeah, so out of the 3 of us, I have seen the most. So just put that on the record.
Yeah, you also lost movie combat last week. So
yeah, okay, whatever. Okay.
But now that we've gone through all of his films and taken a look and kind of discussed, I thought it would be great if we could each do a ranking. Top three favorite Nolan films.
Just 3?
Just 3. I know, there's a lot.
Okay.
There's 10 movies that we've done, that we've reviewed, I believe. So narrowing it down to just 3. Let's start with Nate.
In my number 3 spot is Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. That movie, I think that he does so much with his movies that is groundbreaking for a lot of different reasons. And again, definitely, Justin, to your point you made earlier, the acting has a lot to do with that film and with his movies in general. But I just think the way that movie, what that movie did, and sort of further emphasized what Batman Begins did for superhero movies and for the concept of a supervillain, is phenomenal. So Dark Knight is my number 3. My number 2 would have to be Interstellar. And so, like, seeing how low a lot of people ranked it, I think, there might be a little bit of bias in the sense of like the experience that I had with this movie. For a movie that sort of focuses so much on Einstein's relativity of time, the fact that I was like sort of in that theater for 3 hours, but it didn't feel like it at all. So it felt like time travel, going into this big giant sphere and then coming out, and the sun was setting, and
your
was
beard was actually shorter when you got out
somehow. Somehow. That's how time works. But no, it was honestly, it's such a phenomenal movie. And I think, Kevin, to your point, I don't think it's the best space movie, but to see a movie that focuses so much on taking this narrative of relationships and love and puts it into the sci-fi, that's the best thing I've ever seen from those melding of genres. And again, I think that in a way that's groundbreaking. And I think just like how Nolan looked back at 2001: A Space Odyssey as an inspiration for Interstellar, I think Interstellar is going to be that film for filmmakers in the future. And then my number 1 spot, again, another movie that I think was groundbreaking, and again, something that hadn't happened to me and really hasn't happened to me since The Matrix, was Inception. For me, and I rewatched it again today, and it's honestly unbelievable. The all the little details and how much you can sort of pick up on. I can't get enough of it, and I don't want more of it, because I think it's so perfect in its own bubble. Like, I don't want an Inception 2. But I gotta say, like, out of all the movies that he's made, that one has just stuck with me the most. And I think, to me, that, in my opinion, is the most Nolan movie. So that's why it's at the number 1 spot for me.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great, man. Kev.
Well, I struggled here for number 3 because I thought, how do you make a list like this and not put a Batman movie on it? But if I did put a Batman movie on it, it wasn't going to be Dark Knight. So I thought, you know what? I have a close enough third that I'll put that one instead. Went with Inception. I just think he did so much right with that movie. There are just so many singular moments and events that stand out and are unlike anything else, at least that came before it. Mm-hmm. And again, a lot of fun performances. So that was a nice, easy 3 for me. Number 2, I thought this was going to be my number 1 forever when it came to Nolan movies, just because I'm not sure of a Nolan movie in terms of its big climax and reveal and everything hit me quite as hard as The Prestige did. I loved it. I still get goosebumps thinking about how I felt in the theater when it was all coming together. And so that was just absolutely fantastic. But for my number 1, I think for somebody this late in the game with the hundreds and hundreds of other war films that are already out there, to make what I would consider to be the best singular entry in the World War II film genre in Dunkirk, I just think it's an incredible achievement. I know, it's an unconventional choice when you're looking at Nolan's movies, but I just think there was so much done so well and so right. And usually when a movie makes me sad or the things that I want to happen don't happen as often as they did in this one, I'm usually a little upset, and I was perfectly fine with everything, knowing that Tom Hardy wasn't going to make it. Seeing George die and I think that is what war was. It wasn't a happy ending. There was no happy ending, even if the good guys won. And so I just think that was encapsulated so well. And so, again, 8 of these movies are just phenomenal. One I haven't seen, and then the other is Interstellar. No,
Right.
I kid. No, honestly, of the nine movies I've seen, 8 of them are incredible, and Insomnia is okay.
But would you look at the fact that the one that made you cry the most was your number one, which is surprising, Kevin, because you're usually all about...
It's the only one that made me even consider crying. Again, I wasn't sitting there openly weeping,
All
but
right,
a tear in the eye is still an achievement. You should win an Academy Award if you put a tear in my eye, quite frankly. Let's say, hey, the last guy who did it, Taika Waititi, certainly won an Academy Award, so maybe Nolan should have too. Just, what's your list there, bud?
Yeah, my list. Okay, so just to kind of give, I didn't include a Batman. I think Batman isn't really of the Nolan verse. It's of his body of work, and there's themes that are obviously topic of discussion, but like, you know, the Batman movies are on their own. I think, you know, those are entirely different. They're obviously defined the genre and helped inspire the genre to move in different directions. Influential, but not on the list. I started with Inception as my number 3. Reason being that I feel like this is the most Hollywood effective way to do a Nolan film. And it reached the audience. It really tapped in. And like I was saying before, you know, after doing something like The Dark Knight, I think, does he really want that to be a defining movie? It probably is. But I think now people are also going to say Inception as well because it followed The Dark Knight. And I really think he wanted to hit that one out of the park and make it so tight, so concise. And if that meant including very key characters to help get that information off to the audience so that they could really appreciate the value of that ending, then, you know, goal achieved. So number 3, Inception. Number 2 would be Interstellar. Interstellar was probably one of the best space experience movies. I appreciate it for that. And as I agree that it's probably a campy, cheesy sort of thing to incorporate this bond of love, but choosing a very human element that is only defined by people as understanding, and using that as a means, as like the core in this space epic film, which is so out of this world. I think there's just a real sort of like beautiful simplicity to how he uses that element in the story. So while I enjoy it for its amazing space epics, I really did appreciate actually the ending a little bit more. And yeah, you know what? It doesn't necessarily fully explain, and they describe the bookshelf world as beings that brought them there, and it was us that brought us here, and all this sort of stuff. But I just think that, again, in comparison to something like a 2001 A Space Odyssey, did it a lot better. Number 1 is going to be Memento. I think for me, the reason why Memento is it was the defining film personally for me that made me want to actually in some way try to be a filmmaker. You know what I mean? And if, you know how you watch something or you see something and you're like, yeah, I want to do that. Like, I want to be that person. And
That's really cool.
I think that was probably, there's a multitude of movies, but definitely when I was in university and, you know, in high school and transitioning into university, that movie stood out. And yeah, it probably helped define what I appreciate about and have taste in terms of what I appreciate from films now. So everlasting impression for a movie, and rewatching it again, I was definitely surprised by some new things that I caught that I didn't catch so many years ago watching it. So pretty cool.
I just want to say really quickly, I find it really fascinating that out of 10 movies, there were 6 different entries on these lists. Like, that just shows you how good this guy is at making movies and how he can appeal to different people in different ways. Like, it really is a testament to him.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that, you know, again, Nolan hasn't really made a bad movie. Like, his worst movie is still enjoyable, like you said, Kev, on anyone's list. You know what I mean? It doesn't really matter. It does really come down to taste.
I think it's phenomenal as we go through. We went through the entire pantheon of his films, and I really do think in those, you know, 9-ish films at least, he went from, oh, that's a movie by Christopher Nolan to, oh, that's a Christopher Nolan movie.
Yeah.
Right. And I really
right.
love,
Well said.
I love that that's how we think of him at this point. And again, it all clicked at different points for us. You know, for Justin, you know, Memento really put him on your radar. And then, Kevin, you mentioned that, you know, you said it was
The Prestige.
the Prestige that really brought it in. And then for me, it was Inception. Right. And I just think that's super cool to kind of see that in terms of where they rank on our list as well. But dude, honestly, it's such a fun conversation to have with you guys. Thank you so much. This was cool.
It was a blast. And I think you said that really well, that you could show somebody that Tenet trailer and not put a Christopher Nolan film.
100%.
And most people would go, that looks like a Christopher Nolan movie, you know?
Right.
It just feels like one already. So
Right. And on that note, we will be checking out this movie on August 26th. So be sure to look out for our in-depth review when it hits the podcast, because you know it's going to. But guys, that's it for us. We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. If you did, please feel free to give us a rating on Apple Podcasts. 5 stars is the minimum rating you can give there. So please rate, review, and let us know what you think. But as always, we are Geekcentric, and you can be too, which means you can check us out on YouTube at youtube.com/Geekcentric. Follow us on Twitter at GeekcentricYT, and check us out on Instagram at WeAreGeekcentric. And if you want to share your top 3 Christopher Nolan films, please do so by emailing us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That is wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. So that's it for us. Join us next week. Nate will be hosting. And until next week, as we say,
Love ya.
stay home safe, guys.
peace.